All right, let's dive in. Today, we're looking at something pretty fascinating, a place where ancient wisdom is meeting a very modern medical problem. We're asking a big question. Could a traditional herbal remedy actually be the key to treating a painful, widespread disease? Let's find out. So, here's the setup. On one side, you've got Rhizoma Musae, a traditional Chinese herb that's been used for literally centuries. And on the other side, osteoarthritis, a degenerative joint disorder that's pretty much a modern epidemic affecting millions and millions of people all over the world. It's a classic showdown, ancient knowledge versus a modern-day ailment. And that really brings us to the heart of it, doesn't it? Could the answer to relieving all that chronic pain be hidden inside this plant that people have trusted for generations? Well, that's the exact mystery that modern science is now trying to unravel. To crack this case, first, we've got to understand the crime scene. We need to look at what's actually going on inside the body when someone has osteoarthritis. So the official definition is pretty straightforward. Osteoarthritis, you'll often hear it called OA, is when that protective cartilage on the ends of your bones just wears down over time. You can think of it like the smooth, slick coating in your joints getting worn out and breaking down. Now, you might be asking, why is this becoming such a common problem? Well, the research points to a few usual suspects. For one, we have a population that's aging all around the globe, and that naturally bumps up the risk. Then you add in rising obesity rates, which put a ton more stress on our joints. And of course, traumatic injuries can really kickstart that whole degenerative process. But here's the really crucial part. It's a vicious cycle. It all starts with some kind of damage. That damage triggers your body's inflammatory response. But with osteoarthritis, this response totally backfires. The inflammation actually causes the cartilage to break down even more. And that breakdown, it releases even more inflammatory stuff, which just speeds the whole process up. Inflammation, right here, is the key villain in our story. Okay, so we get the problem. Now, let's turn to our prime suspect, the potential solution. It's time to profile this ancient clue, Rhizoma Musae. So what are we actually talking about here? Rhizoma Musae, we'll just call it RM from now on, is the dried root of the Musa bajou plant. And for centuries, it's been a real cornerstone of traditional medicine way out in China's Miao region. And believe me, this stuff is no one-trick pony. Its traditional uses are all over the map, from treating headaches and swelling to acting as a detoxifying agent. This herb has a long history of being a go-to remedy. And here's where it gets really interesting for our case. Modern science actually backs up what tradition has been saying for ages. RM has a seriously powerful profile. It's an analgesic, that means it relieves pain. It's an antioxidant, but most importantly, it has proven anti-inflammatory properties. That right there is a massive clue. But just knowing it fights inflammation isn't enough. Not for modern science. Scientists needed to know how it works, on a deep molecular level. And this is where our story pivots from ancient tradition to some seriously high-tech forensics. See, this is the million-dollar question. It's one thing to know that a remedy works. It's a completely different challenge to understand how. How does this plant actually get in there and interrupt that vicious cycle of inflammation we talked about? For the longest time, the exact mechanism was a total black box. And so, the mission became crystal clear. Researchers needed to draw a map. They had to decode the precise link between the active chemicals buzzing around inside Rhizoma Musae and the specific disease pathways that make osteoarthritis so destructive. To do this, they brought out some incredible tools. The first is something called network analysis. Honestly, the best way to think of this is like a biological GPS. It takes all the compounds in the herb on one side and all the pathways of the disease on the other, and it maps out the most direct and effective routes for the treatment to take. Then there's the second tool, which sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. It's called molecular docking. This is basically a super powerful 3D computer simulation. So imagine a protein that's causing the disease is a lock. Molecular docking takes the compound from the herb, the key, and it digitally tests if that key is a perfect fit to get inside the lock and stop it from doing any more damage. So cool. So they brought in all this powerful forensic tech, they pointed it at this ancient herb, and what did the investigation reveal? What's the verdict? Well, the results were incredibly promising. First, the team successfully identified the active ingredients, the stuff that's actually doing the work. Then, using that biological GPS, they mapped out the exact pathways RM uses to fight OA. And finally, that molecular docking confirmed it. The herb's key compounds were a perfect fit for the locks of the proteins causing the disease. You know, the researchers' own conclusion really sums it up perfectly. They said, these findings create a solid foundation for more studies and maybe even new drug development. What that basically means is, hey, this isn't a cure yet, but it's the rock-solid proof we needed to take the next big step. So let's zoom out for a second. What's the big picture here? Why does a study like this really matter, beyond just this one plant and this one disease? Because what this research is really doing is building a bridge, a scientific bridge. It's connecting centuries of traditional wisdom, things that people knew worked, but maybe not exactly why, with the rigorous, evidence-based world of modern medicine. It's about validating that ancient knowledge. And that just leaves us with a final, really fascinating question to chew on. If this one single plant, used for generations in just one part of the world, holds this much potential, I mean, how many other secrets just like it are hidden out there in nature, just waiting for us to find the right scientific key to unlock them?